You're strong.
I know.
It's okay. I've got you now.
Just like in the movies.
Welcome to SuperWonder Legacy. I am Jared. I'm here with Brit. What's up, Brit?
Hello, hello.
So there's been a very special question that Brit and I have been wondering because we've done many stories about how episodes. Well, we've done stories too about how like Superman and Wonder Woman work together, how their worlds meld together. But the thing about that left a little hole in our arguments. How would their supporting cast, like their families, like work having these two characters like interact? In other words, how would one Superman relate to the Wonder Woman family, like with the Wonder Girls, with Hippolyta, and how would Diana work with the Super family? Because there's a lot of misconceptions, particularly with Diana relating to the Kents, that I feel like let's squash that. So let's do this. So Britt, you want to start us off?
Okay, so with this idea, first of all, with doing the research, the families, like, I, what DC is trying to do now is build these families, but it's really underdeveloped and just trying to put them together in a way of like the Bat family. And the reason why the Bat family is so successful is because they have a genuine connection. And like the characters also, they have, even though you have multiple Robins, the multiple Robins still have different personalities where they aren't redundant.
Well,
So,
here's the other reason why the families work for Batman and not for like Superman or the Flash. Because here's the problem with having families for like superpowered characters that have the power of gods. Why does anyone try to commit a crime in Central City or Metropolis?
right, that with what Philip Johnson, what he tried to do, he wanted the super family to protect Metropolis. And it's kind of like his first, showing of the family together, I think was a bank robbery or something. And it's
Yeah.
like, why do you need 5 to 6 different, you know, Kryptonians or, to stop a bank robbery?
Hell,
That's
John
too
as his
much.
10-year-old self could stop a bank robbery. And
Right.
I'm like, again, why do bank robbers try to do this? Because not only do you have Supermen to deal with now, you have 5 Supermen essentially to deal with.
Yeah.
Why? Or like the Flash. The reason why the Bat family works is because you could shoot the Bat family because they're people.
Right. And again, going back to, just because it's multiple Robins, they still have distinctive personalities and everything.
Mhm.
You have Dick Grayson, he is the first Robin. He, the acrobat, the leader. He's practically like, I believe he's described as Bruce's, like, his ultimate success.
Yes, he is.
And then you have Jason. Jason is the ultimate failure, basically.
Mhm.
The one that died, the street Robin, um, just the bad boy of the family. Then you have Tim Drake. He is the one that was inspired to become a detective. He wanted to be Robin, to fight alongside Batman. Then you have Damien. Damien is the biological um kid of Bruce. His whole thing is, being with the Al Ghuls and Bruce, that family dynamic, or um how Damien is stuck in between. So that's how interesting because they have different storylines and, motivations and purposes. The Bat Family works. Then you have the Batgirls too. Barbara, but she's Oracle sometimes. Then you have Cassandra Cain. Uh, you have Stephanie Brown and what's her name?
Sandra Kane, Stephanie Brown. I feel like
Uh,
I'm missing one more. I thought there
Frank
were only
Miller.
three.
Frank,
Oh, Carrie Kelly.
Carrie. So you have these again, even the Batgirls, very distinctive. So that is what works for a Batman. But that cannot be replicated with everyone else because, like you said, they are super powered.
Mm-hmm.
So the Flash, I mean, I don't know how many speedsters you need, but yeah, um, in one place. I mean, at least spread them out. With Superman can take care of one thing. You have Connor, and Kara. That was pretty much the main sub supers from pre 52, and that's who mattered. John does not matter because he is nothing but a carbon copy Clark. He's just younger, and um, well, his selling point is that he's bisexual. The super twins, I mean, they really don't have a place. They were just, set up to be replacements for John. So
And the
they,
problem with John also, particularly when he first started out, is that the only Superboy people knew at the time was Connor, and you're just throwing in a new one. If you wanted to bring back Superboy, maybe you shouldn't have gotten rid of Connor with Flashpoint.
well, the thing is, with Connor, that is what Jurgens wanted to do was he wanted to basically strip Superman of his supporting cast of anyone who can overshadow Lois and John. And so,
Again, Lois just keeps on screwing over Superman.
right. So with the Connor and John situation, Connor was treated poorly. He, I believe, in the Teen Titans Rebirth book or one of those books, he was actually labeled like his name was labeled as an abomination, and
Oh God.
and the only real Superboy was John. And yeah, they just really treated Connor bad because they wanted to prop up John.
And that's not
And
racist. That's definitely not racist in any way.
and just because, I mean, Connor is a clone or whatever like that, it he still had a story. He had a better story than John just being about a biological son, which he really doesn't have any type of like conflict. He's the fact that they bent over backwards, to even force him into continuity, and how so easily he, pretty much came about was pre 52. Clark and Lois was not able to have children.
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty much their conflict of being together was Kryptonian and human DNA just does not mix. Even
and
with
and that's also why it was tough with Connor, because remember he's a clone of of Clark
Clark
and
and Lex.
Lex, and that's why he didn't have all of Clark's powers or anything like that.
So how can you have that double standard of John? And pretty much Jurgens' answer to all of that was it's comics. So it's like, no, you can't do that.
You have to still be consistent to the rules that your universe establishes. I'm like,
Exactly.
that's that's almost as BS as people saying, why can Batman like seemingly save everyone? Because he's Batman. Or why is
Yeah.
Lois Lane so important? Because she's Lois Lane. That's not a reason. But
But
it really astounds me. So then we get to the hypothetical question, because again, and this was part of the thing that I think the Sewell book did really well, as we talked about in the first episode where we covered it, was that it showed how the two relate to each other's world really well.
exactly. What people obviously do not want to admit, or they don't want to see, is that even though Clark and Diana, of course, they are vastly different characters, um, but their purpose and what they represent. Firstly, Diana was created to be Clark's, or his counterpart.
Hmm.
So, as an Amazon, she is the epitome of female empowerment, of um, feminism, of this strong woman that's fighting for equality and respect for women and children. And Superman, he was supposed to be the embodiment of basically an immigrant story,
Hmm.
and representing, the being the champion of the oppressed.
Hmm.
Um, and again, it's still the fact of helping and um, fighting for equality and respect. That is their purpose, whether, period.
Hmm.
And what they bring together is the stories of immigrant, of a refugee, of an outsider, of diversity, whether even with Diana being from an island, even with her, and I don't like it when people just, reduce her. They say that her being with Clark reduces her. Isn't No, you reduce her. And to say that she's a warrior, so she doesn't understand, or just because she's from an island secluded, what she represents is like a person, say a person that comes from Brazil, and then they come to the US. That is basically, her story.
Yeah, and that's something actually that she and Clark have in common is they are both represent some form of immigration. Clark being a
Exactly.
refugee, her be so that's part of why in like Justice League 12 why they understand like not really fitting in anywhere, because it's like they both know what it's like to go to a new land. Or well, with Clark he was much younger, but my point still stands. And thing about it is that was the line that sold me on this couple, is when they both understand what it's like to not fit in anywhere. So I always thought, okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. But then you have them, with their traditional uh status quo, or
Hmm.
uh, those, is that you have to reduce, and you have to, or completely ignore that part of who they are. Or if that is acknowledged in a way of basically Steve and Lois are their green cards or something. And and the only way they'll be accepted as Americans, or or something like that, is if they are with Lois and Steve. But two two outsiders, immigrants together, you know, is very xenophobic,
Yeah,
very,
well, yeah.
a racist type outlook. But it's
Particularly
kind of like,
particularly when you're reading like the Rebirth comics, and it's particularly the Wonder Woman Rebirth comics, and well, actually both, and they're basically both bashing that pairing, calling it not true and everything like that. And I'm like, that's
yeah,
the way they phrased it is very xenophobic.
yeah. And you also have where, like, with Rebirth, it's basically Diana, she's propping up Steve as this survivor. He's a military man, and you know, first of all, as uh, she's not supposed to actually be, or so connected with the government like that. You
Hmm.
have the Justice League that, yeah, they are associated in a in a way
Loosely
that's,
associated.
yeah, and it's very like tension or antagonistic between the Justice League and the government. They
Yeah.
don't actually just, they're not together, kumbaya or whatever like that. So for her to and for her to understand or to learn how the US government and the military is very problematic. But yet you force her with Steve, who does not fight against the military or the government. He works for them, and he stands by, what they do. Even in the Tom King's run right now, issue 2, Tom King is trying to, he said about, romance and drama or whatever like that with them, and for him to try to make it seem like if he wants to do that, this love story, he still went against her regardless. He did not fight, or voice anything as being by her side.
Because
And
what they could have done, they could have had it where he did and he was thrown in the brig. If they had done that, then I would have been like, okay, he at least spoke up for her and he took the consequences. But it's like, no, I'm just gonna be a tool of the government to go deal with Wonder Woman, and I'm like,
the
that what?
yeah, the only thing that I think it was issue 4 or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
that Steve was thrown somewhere, he was being taunted about
Oh
like,
yeah, that
and
yeah
but that
yeah.
was really just a taunting. He wasn't really
Mhm.
taking up for Diana as what the government is doing, or the military, what they're doing is bad. It was just basically like, you called her out her name, whatever, so he punched, or the fact of actually, I think the guy um was talking about him and putting him down, so he punched him. So
Which I
it's
can understand
still,
that. Uh,
yeah,
The another thing, give Tom King some credit is that in the issue 7, Superman asked, if you want me to get involved, I'll get involved, and she's like, no, 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 this is an Amazon issue, I have to deal with it. So at least Tom King got Superman would get involved if he wanted to, but Diana told him not to.
exactly. And that's the difference between the relationships. Clark and Diana would go, you know, to hell and back for each other without any hesitation, and to see that genuineness of Clark saying, I want to help you, and he actually says what they're doing is wrong, and he also says that,
Champion of the
you
oppressed.
know right, and you know if you need me, I'm here always and forever. um
Yeah, I gotta say, if Tom King were part of our game, Brit, he would have gotten some points from that. I gotta be honest, because
right.
that was great. Plus, there was some more dialogue in the comic where like she's like, just think of fate. It's like you come from a planet and land on this random planet called Earth, and we find each other. So I was like, okay, Tom King could be giving hints, or it could just be his editor. I like to think it's him giving hints.
Right, but it's still the fact of, outside of her supporting cast, you have the Wonder Girls, but
Mhm.
he is the one that would be by her side and
Yeah,
go against the government. And he
100%.
understands that because,
And
like you said, the champion of the oppressed.
yeah,
And it just really just shows, well, first, this story could have been a Superman and Wonder Woman story. That
that would
would
have
have,
been cool.
yeah, that would have made so much more sense than, it's still contrived because it's like, no, don't get involved, but it's like, no, people are being murdered,
What you could have done is have this with Clark where he struggles because remember, American way is his thing. And he could then say, this is not the American way. Because
Exactly.
here's the thing about Clark when he says truth, justice, the American way, what he means is he represents all the good parts of America, what America should and can be. What it's been misconstrued as is, oh my gosh, America, rah, rah, rah.
Exactly. So with all of this, their worlds still come together in some way, whether you are dealing with America or their background of the the thing is also when people say that Diana is a princess, okay, yes, that is, she can't help it. She is the daughter of a queen, whatever. But actually reading the books, Diana does not care
Yeah,
for,
when they say like she belongs with Bruce because he's like a rich guy and she's a princess, I'm like, you realize she doesn't care about being a princess, right?
she wouldn't have left her island if she cared about her, being a princess. And the thing is, what Diana loves is adventure. She loves nature. And so when they say like Clark is from a farm and she wouldn't like because she's from an island and he's on a farm, is like no, that makes sense to come together because being on a farm, Clark is with nature, you know, the just the agriculture and
Hmm.
um the animals. Diana loves animals.
Yeah.
She would love the farm. So
Doesn't she speak to animals? Is that one of her
yeah,
powers? I thought that was.
she's basically like she's a Disney princess in a way, but
Oh
much
man, if
more.
Disney bought DC, can you imagine if Wonder Woman became an actual Disney princess?
She would honestly be the first of all, she would be the top Disney princess because not only does, yeah, she has the moments of the sweet and cuteness, but she also is very fierce and,
I almost kind of
and,
want
and
Disney to buy DC so we could put a Wonder Woman world in Disney World.
that is that would honestly be really cool. I mean, you have
Well,
um
here's the thing. I guarantee you, if Universal buys Discovery, there's no way they don't build a DC world.
the, the thing is DC with actually, with good ideas, they can't execute them right. So
Yeah, but I'd still say because Universal's known partly for their theme parks, and I gotta say, can you imagine if they had like Metropolis, Gotham, Themyscira?
kind of like how they have it with Six Flags,
Yeah.
but I mean the Six Flags, well, the one that's, in my area is very, I would say that those rides that they do have, yeah, it's not very interesting. So they would really have to ramp up like something to be actually fun.
Hmm.
I think the only ride really, of course, is Batman. The
Hmm.
Superman ride, well, I mean, I wouldn't want to, I'm afraid of heights. So going all the way up
Well, what they could
on
do,
that is
they could
terrible.
turn it into like one of those theater rides where like the thing tilts, but it doesn't really move. Yeah, kind of like where he's like flying and stuff.
Yeah, something like that. It just like with the creativity that these characters bring, if it's not Batman, they don't care. And the execution of anything is just it's very underwhelming.
Yeah.
So, but back to Cal and Diana, it's overall, it's just their worlds can overlap, and
Mhm.
it's pretty much um the different sides of the same coin, and they are on different spectrums of the immigrant experience. Clark, he was, you know, a baby, so he grew up and in the world to understand, and as a child to understand the way people look at you if you're different. Diana, she comes into the world when she's an adult and she has to learn that. But at the same time, because she's 18, she's still a child, so she has to grow pretty much the same in a way. So yeah, it all comes together. It just takes a creative mind and one that actually understands, you know, the hardships of being different.
So what
And
you're telling me is it takes Charles Sewell.
yeah,
I had
yeah.
to. I had to. So next slide, what we got here. So now this is one of the points that I'm going to bring up that is one of the most interesting ones for me because one of the for some reason this is a point that people bring up. Apparently they think that like the Kents would not approve of Diana, and I'm like, have you seen them interact in the rare times that they do interact with Diana? Have you seen they treat her very warmly? All of a sudden that would change because Clark would be dating her.
Well, it is because, and I've seen jokes about that. If Clark was, and it was brought up too in Wonder Woman 170 when Diana, um, she acknowledged that Clark is very privileged,
Mm-hmm.
that he is passing. And that is one of the issues that I have with Superman is because he does pass. And the way he's written is because he's able to pass so easily as a regular, Caucasian American,
Mm-hmm.
it's like that is when they say he wants to be human, that is what they are saying. He wants to be a regular Caucasian American that doesn't go through anything, spoon fed, has this perfect life type thing. And that's not how life works in reality. And that is not the purpose of the character, as he is supposed to be a representation again of, the hardships of being of an immigrant story. And that is the one thing, or one of the things that New 52 got right, was showing that when he came on the scene, the government, took him in and tortured him.
Mm-hmm.
And he wasn't, um, or even in DCU, showing that Superman was not easily embraced by the world.
And yet
And
still save people.
right. But with when they brought back pre 52 Superman, how in the very first issue he's on the moon, standing there with the American flag. He is on a farm, but in a sense of like Little House on the Prairie.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was just very much, giving that message of you can only be American if you are, you know, Caucasian.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the wrong message at that time, especially in 2016. Yeah, with the election, but also the world events of the racial, divide and everything. That just felt like the wrong message to give with this character. And also, it was bashing New 52 Superman, which represented that diversity that we really needed at that time, you know.
Because
So,
arguably, when you think about it, by your logic, Brit, the new 52 Soups, he was more needed in 2016.
he was.
He
And
was.
he was. And I believe that um when the Black Lives Matters, when that social media, when people were putting the black screen on their profile,
Mm-hmm.
DC um, posted something about it. And shout out to Jordan. He posted New 52 Superman when he was in the jeans and tee, and was holding the giant chains.
Oh, that one. Yeah, exactly. That could work. And by yes, shout out to Jordan. He's awesome. But
And
yeah, you had so much iconography of fighting for the oppressed that if anything, they should have been 100% like singing his praises.
yes, and when he posted that, the amount of responses that he got and to support of that, and was like, yeah, we need this Superman. And then the fact that he had to tweet out saying, oh, well, they killed him. It's kind of like,
They,
well,
they didn't just kill him, they blew him up. So that's even
right.
worse. But for this, the thing is like, I don't think the values clashing or anything like that would be an issue with the Kents and Diana simply because it's never been an issue before, as far as I know, at least.
It's never been an issue. It's just the fact of basically the fandoms and their point of view or their, like I said, like we've said, the Superman fandom is very unaccepting. You are fans, quote unquote, of this character who represents diversity.
Acceptance, literally acceptance.
And
And I'm
yeah,
like, I'm like, if you call yourself Superman fans, but act in a way that Superman would find reprehensible, I'm sorry, there's an issue here. But
right.
speaking of actually parents, now the question also comes: how does Clark relate to Hippolyta and the Amazons? Because, like I've always said, he represents the antithesis of everything the Amazons have been taught about men, which also makes that Wonder Bat doesn't work because Bruce is still a good guy. Don't get me wrong, but he still is like he still is most of the things that the Amazons say about men.
Exactly. With Clark, he has this power, and he can, remind Hippolyta of either Zeus or Hercules, but he is so kind and gentle and respectful that, and again, his humble beginnings of being raised on a farm can pretty much, connect with being on the island with
Yeah.
them, how they, I mean, they fish,
Mhm.
they science.
They raise
Um,
cattle and stuff, and he could say, "Oh no, this is how I grew up." And can you imagine for the Amazons what that's like? A being of this power, a god in his own right, grew up on a farm doing farm chores.
yeah. I mean, that is something that they would really find so fascinating. And with Hippolyta, you have these moments in comics where, you know, like the Our World's at War, when Clark says, she's my best friend, but she's like, she's my daughter. So you can feel that they have this protectiveness, you know, um, of Diana, that they both care for her, but of course on a different level, but they will, you know, um, in the New 52, Diana said that there's only two people that I trust and that she loves, more than anything. It was Clark and Hippolyta. Um, then you have, certain moments like the image in the middle where this was like just a sitcom thing, but it's the fact that Hippolyta asks Diana, is Clark her boyfriend? It's kind of like that is, why would she just think that Clark is her boyfriend? And she accepted it if even if he was. Then you have the Ruby Spears episode of Clark helping Diana save the Amazons from, I don't know, it seemed like a Cersei reject. I have no idea. I forgot her name.
Yeah, it was basically a knockoff Cersei.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, for Diana to kiss him on the cheek in front of you know, Hippolyta and Clark saying that, your daughter and I make a great team, and for Hippolyta to pretty much praise him for helping and, you know, giving him that he's always welcomed. That is overall what we see is that a lot of these interactions, and they have them in spurts, but it's not consistent. And to really solidify this shared universe, you have to show these relationships and how they can connect. And even with the Amazons being so secluded, but with the gradual of opening up, that is a way to really show the progression of the Amazons. Is that if it's one person or one man that Diana truly trusts that can, become an honorary um, visitor of the mascara or something like that, is Clark. That is a story that should be told, or at least a some type of connection that should be consistently established.
Exactly. Then we have here's a connection that's been consistently established actually. Diana and Kara, because they interact a lot.
Right. So I did not know that. I knew of pre 52 when the apocalypse storyline,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't know of the I think the Silver Age
Mm-hmm.
65. So their very first team up was I guess Clark needed a female figure for Kara
Mm-hmm.
for a mentor. And it's funny because he went to Diana but didn't, of course Lois is terrible anyway, but
Mm-hmm.
is the fact that the first person that he thought of was Diana. So within this issue, I'm guessing like Kara and Diana, I think that they are brainwashed or something into falling in love with like two Frenchmen or something like that.
Oh
So they go
God,
on this
that sounds like Silver Age for you.
yeah, so they go on this wacky adventure or whatever, and I in that moment, they bond a little bit, and then at the end, it's Superman, you know, thanking Diana for helping, and they have like of course, the old school wink at the audience type
Mm-hmm.
ending, but it's just the fact that Kara and Diana have this um big sister, little sister, or relationship, and I just don't understand how people can, or well, it's Twitter, but to try to ship them together is weird to me.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
because Kara is like 16.
Well, Brit, here's what you gotta understand about Twitter and about shippers. They will ship with anyone if they have any interaction whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, even if they are just like, I mean, if it's an established relationship though of sisters or of, I don't know,
It,
why
it
would you?
doesn't work.
Or even the age gap, like it's just like, no, don't do that. um yeah, that is just not something that I would ever like consider. And it's the fact that um Tom Taylor for Dark Knight of Steel,
Oh
that
yeah.
he you
At least
know
he made them young, around the same age, though.
but it's still Kara though, like it's still the fact of that is Diana and that's Kara, and their years, you know, of interaction has always been the big sister, younger sister, you know, that even in Justice League Action, um, there was a clip of Kara and Diana training, and you have that in pre-52 and New 52. We didn't have that, which again, a lot of the New 52, it was things that were brought up, things that were, you know, basically being set up, but it never followed through.
Although
And
I do like that page where he kisses Wonder Woman, she flies away, and then his car goes, "I like her." And then Clark goes, "Yeah, so do I." I'm like, "I'm sure you do,
yeah,
bro."
yeah, because Diana gave Kara a sword, and she's like, "Yeah, I like her. We're totally going to." It, with this Kara, she was more of the rebel,
Well,
and
yeah. By the way, this Kara became a Red Lantern,
yeah, she had a lot of anger issues for sure.
which I like
Um,
because that differentiated her from Clark. Because oftentimes, and this is a problem with the Super Family, like we alluded at the beginning of this episode, where they tend to treat them as if they tend to treat her like she's just a girl version of Superman. At least with that, and like with the subsequent, like her getting a lantern ring, it kind of differentiated her from Clark a little bit.
exactly. Or even it's just the fact of even with Kara and her immigrant experience, she can relate to Diana as well. Um, and that is what established their relationship because Diana, if did Kara Diana comes to Man's World before Kara is
Yeah,
introduced.
I think so.
So within that time, Diana, because Kara comes when she's like 16. So and Diana um came when she was 18. So she can, you know, empathize with that. And that is how she can teach Kara. So
And Kara can teach Diana because in the event that Superman and Wonder Woman get married and get into a relationship in the New 52 case, Kara can be a resource to learn about Kryptonian culture because she still remembers Krypton.
exactly. Oh my God, I did not think of that kind of. Yeah.
And this is why we work so well together. So there you go.
Yes.
So next we have, speaking of like cousins and stuff, how about how would Superman react to the Wonder Girls or like relate to them? Which is, it's a little bit of a criminality because they don't really interact that much.
Oh, going back,
Oh
forgot
yeah.
Krypto.
Oh yeah.
So I didn't really see any interaction with Krypto because first of all, Krypto is kind of like they pass he's supposed to be Cal's dog, but for some reason, and I remember um there was a panel or page that Lois did not like Krypto. So I believe that is what started Krypto kind of like being with Kara or Connor.
Hmm.
Um, and then with Rebirth, of course, even Krypto, we had the big direwolf hound, and then they changed him back to what he wasn't a golden retriever. He was whatever, just a regular dog. And it felt like you're really stripping away the alienness. Like Krypto, I don't care if, you know, um, just because a regular dog to fit in, I mean, you still try to go force this down as you have to be regular, to fit in with the American imagery, even down to the dog. And that just really that saddened me to the fact that they killed or, or off panel changed Krypto. But there hasn't been any interactions, which is just kind of sad because Diana would love Krypto.
And I gotta be honest, I like the idea of like Krypto being like the wolf from 300 in terms of that type of dog. I'm like, I really, really, particularly for like a warrior like Diana.
Right. I think the only for New 52 was when Diana during the um Super Doom,
Hmm.
during that, I think it was Batman and Superman, one of those issues, but it was really in passing of her referring to Krypto. But other than that, yeah, no interactions. And like I said, within the research of doing this, it was a lot of setups, but no follow through with any of the interactions, or is very minimum. Um, and just a lot of DC has a lot of talking, but not enough showing.
Yep, and that's the problem with DC. And it's one of those things where I'm like, you have all this potential, and you don't use it as much as you should because it's really astounding. But I like to say, going to the Wonder Girls, that if Superman and Wonder Woman had like continued on, and even if they didn't do like the Donna, even if they kept the Donna stuff the way they did in the Finch run, in other words, that it was like a reincarnated of, it was like made from the parts of Hippolyta or something like that. It would have been. I get the feeling that they would have had Donna and Clark interact more because at that point, remember, Superman and Wonder Woman were a couple at that point, so they would have had to have interacted once.
Right. And also it's the fact of Brett Booth,
Hmm.
his rejected idea of Donna's her I'm trying to say her design.
Hmm.
It was the fact that she had the emblem, the Superman emblem, and just a mixture of their costume. And if she is to be like a time displaced daughter, that would work. If she is just meant to be like just their mentee, that works.
Hmm.
But it's the fact of, I think the only actual interaction is, I don't know if Clark was possessed as or brainwashed, but I think he killed Donna. That was like the
What?
only, yeah, I have to go back, but yeah, I think he like accidentally killed her, or it was
Accidentally killed her. I love that.
or it was a robot Superman or something like that. But yeah, it was something like that that yeah, that was pretty much the only interaction. And then with Cassie, she had the relationship with Connor.
Hmm.
So that's the only connection. But actually like talking and interaction as, you know, this as they should, with Clark being Diana's best friend, you would think that yeah, their um families would interact. I know that what with Gods of Gotham, Phil Jimenez's first Wonder Woman arc, he, again, with the Bat family, you know, you try to match everyone together, every generation. So with that, because I think he wanted Huntress and he forced Artemis in, but you know, to try to have everyone match. So you have Batman and Wonder Woman, you have Donna and Nightwing, Tim and Cassie, and Huntress, Huntress and Artemis. And I mean, that works, but again, that was really the only interaction. Um, it seems that with Superman though, because his family is so redundant and so small that you can't have those type of interactions.
Hmm.
And you know, you have Connor that is in the same generation with Cassie and Tim, but at the same time, I mean, it's still, that is the only interaction that comes about. Superman himself, he's very limited. Like I saw I think it was on Twitter or it was on Reddit, but someone brought up the question of, him having like other female friends or, female interactions. And I don't know if anyone responded to that, but my response is, well, being that he's married and any other female character will overshadow Lois, it's very difficult to have him interact, even if it is platonic and just a team up. It's kind of like Superman cannot interact with any other female character. And that was really bad in Rebirth because you have where even Cat Grant, she is like nowhere to be found at times.
And then,
Um,
and then Bendis, after Lois left, and for some reason went on a space adventure with John and Jor-El, he introduced two other journalists that was supposed to be like other relationships for Clark. And
yeah, but that
I'm
didn't
like,
last.
Brian, I get that you want, I understand what you're going for, and Lord knows I don't want Clark with Lois, but this is a little forced, dude.
Yeah, it's I mean, if you want Clark to have different relationships, I mean, just get rid of the marriage.
Mm-hmm.
That is like the simplest answer to all the problems. Um, but to limit the fact that you can't have him interact with other females because that really shows the insecurity of the writers because you are tempted to in some way, you know, you want to have some implication of a romantic vibe to it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty much why Batman didn't marry Selena because they didn't want to feel limited.
Mm-hmm.
And now what they're doing is um, in Detective Comics, you have Talia back, and she is being played as um, a romantic interest now. So, yeah, you have Selena in one book, you have Talia in another book. I think it's the Elseworlds by Jason Aaron.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's a
Oh
she's
yeah, the
kind of like a star.
Tamaranian.
Yeah, she looks like Starfire. Um,
Apparently, that's not an Elseworld. I don't think that's an Elseworlds. I think it's actually a prequel for Batman.
really, okay. So there, you're showing that he had a a relationship, but with the Superman fans are always the problem. He
Mhm.
can't even have a past relationship with a mermaid. They just think,
Yeah,
oh, I
yeah.
mean,
He,
anybody.
yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say anybody is first of all, it's fiction. It's having fun. Who would have a fit over Superman, who's an alien, having a relationship with a mermaid? That's just like, why are we complaining?
Here's the funny part about Clark being with Diana. Arguably, because of his job as Superman, he spends more time with Diana than he does with Lois. So that's the real. When you actually think about it, it kind of the whole thing about how he has to spend all of his time with his wife that kind of falls apart.
But yeah, but I mean, that is why they want to force, him being more within the Daily Planet.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also a thing is that you really don't see him at the Daily Planet. And, this the reporter thing in 2024, how social media is, news is out so fast with people having podcasts, with people having, you know, um, being right there in the center of any type of incident with their phones.
Yeah, newspapers aren't exactly relevant anymore.
Right. So, I mean, the Daily Planet, it can be like the home base type thing, but like we've talked about, he needs to be a global correspondent, or he needs to be out. He doesn't need to be in the Daily Planet. And that honestly, with him being out of the Daily Planet, means that Lois, again, she doesn't have a role, even as a wife. Um, and also when we saw on Reddit how they say, well, Lois is the mother of John and she's the wife. Okay, first, well, you blame Bendis, but she's a bad mother. Even with Rebirth, you didn't really see her raise John. Again, a lot of telling and not showing. So the
Which
whole mother
again,
thing,
that's the problem with Superman is that. But yeah, she was particularly. That's the other thing. I'm like, that started my whole thing about how she will put the story
story,
above everything when she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna leave you, Clark, and go travel the galaxy because there's a story there, and then I'm gonna leave my son, and then not tell my husband that I'm back for multiple weeks."
but it is, you know, they're supposed to be like the original power couple and
Mhm.
the
Which, by the
golden
way, they're
standard.
not because when you look at it, they originally they weren't a couple. You kind of have to be a couple to be a power couple.
Right. So, for them to com- continue with this facade of that relationship, again, you have a lot of telling and not showing. So, we have going with the Wonder Girls. I mean, even Diana's relationship with the Wonder Girls is very strained.
Hmm.
You know, it I believe that it was said that Tom King, he actually didn't want the Wonder Girls in his run, and it was because fans were asking. That is why they're in the run now. So it's
Which you
like,
kind here's the thing, you kind of have to have the Wonder Girls in there at least once because they're kind of linked to Diana, at least Donna.
yeah, right. If you don't have Cassie, I mean, you don't really need Cassie, um, because she's more so tied to Young Justice. But
And
even,
Yara, DC has ignored Yara's its entire existence, but with you kind of need to have Donna.
but I see that some Donna fans basically say that Donna's ties are really with the Titans. And that does make sense because,
Yeah.
um, you know, she was, um, well, with her origin all messed up, you don't know whether she is the girl that Diana saved from the fire. You don't know if she's the mirror copy of Diana.
Well,
All these.
here's the thing. Going back, okay, I didn't mean to cut you up. I just want to add this.
Oh no, yeah.
The thing about the whole, she's more linked to the Titans. So is Nightwing, but he still shows up in Batman books.
Well, the thing is with Nightwing, the difference is he was Robin, and you know, it's kind of like a 50-50 with him because he did naturally progress from Robin to Nightwing. So,
So did
and
Donna, though.
well, I don't, not really. She really wasn't, I don't think she was as big, she really wasn't as big of a sidekick for Diana as Grayson was for Bruce.
I see. And wasn't it when like she first showed up, when the character was first invented, she was actually just young Diana?
Yeah, so I mean, being young Diana, that still doesn't. I get I understand,
Hmm.
what they say about her being more tied to the Titans, but at the same time, you can't have your cake and eat it too with this situation because you can't say that of her being more tied to the Titans, but want her to be, with Diana, and especially again with this storyline that Tom King is trying to create. is very contrived because he, like we discussed earlier, with Diana just saying it's an Amazon thing with Clark, not you know, um helping her
Hmm.
with the situation. Honestly, it's not just an Amazon thing because within the first issue, it's set up to the fact of the military is, well, first, they off panel, Amazons have um, been off the island and created families, for themselves within man's world for centuries, which is weird because you aren't supposed to be off the island or something like that or
Well, it
whatever.
was Hesha though.
But Hesha was, I think, within her story, it was kind of like she left and made a sacrifice of, um, well, it was kind of a mystery, but it was kind of like a dark mystery with her. With
By the
these,
way, where was the book where they explained this about Hesha?
um,
Yeah, because I'm wondering about that because I'm like, I don't think I ever read a book where they explained Hesha's background. It was just like in
they
dialogue
didn't,
in Superman and Wonder Woman.
they just used Hesha for like this random mini series of the Amazons, but
Oh.
her origin was still never explained.
I
And
was wondering about that because I was like, did I just not read it or did they just not make it?
yeah, no, it's uh, what they're doing with the Amazons is, like I said, they are having them be supposedly had been in man's world for all this time. So that pretty much, um, in a sense, depletes Diana's uniqueness because, yeah, the Amazons can go back and forth, but to actually establish a family and everything, that really does take away Diana's uniqueness because she is supposed to be the Amazon that helps open up, the mascara, and the feel of the Amazons can go back and forth,
Well, here's the
between
problem
man's
with
world
that.
and
Here's the problem with that. The way DC's timeline is because it merged post crisis and new 52. In post crisis, the Amazons could come and go freely to man's world, I believe.
really. So, okay, so they are really trying to have like different things going on. So it's the
Yeah.
Amazons can are if you if you leave the island, you are banned from the island, and I guess you forfeit your mortality or something like that.
Yeah, I
Your
believe
immortality.
so. It's just I remember seeing more Amazons in like post crisis come and go from the island. I think. But if you guys know this, please drop a comment below.
I believe so because that is, I believe so. That is true. But then you have New 52 where they were
Yeah.
completely isolated and,
Hmm.
you know, um,
And then
and
supposedly
everything.
Wonder Woman has never been home.
Yes, she's never been home, but then you have that she's the first hero and she was in man's world, but then went back to Themyscira, and then somehow Steve in present day like crashed on the island again.
And then somehow Superman and Deathstroke have never been on Themyscira. Because, to be clear, the Rebirth thing was, I've never been home. But Superman and Deathstroke have been on the island. What was that? Because the explanation they gave, if memory serves me, because I have the comic and I read it, is that the Sons of Ares created this elaborate like hallucination for Diana, which that would have worked had Superman not gone to the island or Deathstroke.
Yeah, the whole thing with Rebirth of basically trying to say that man that that island was a lie. Yeah, it creates a whole bunch of plot holes and contrivances, And you also have the fact of Jason, Diana's somehow
Which, by the
twin
way,
brother.
I liked that storyline. To be clear, that was I was one of the few Rebirth Wonder Woman storylines, or kind of Rebirth Wonder Woman storylines, that I actually enjoyed. It's just, again, it runs into some minor plot issues.
The plot issue is the fact of, like, if you want the Clay origin, um, you can't have the Clay origin and Zeus and, you know, Hippolyta pregnant with twins. Um,
Oh yeah, yeah, that's right. You can't because it was kind of funny. Jason had better not show up in the Tom King Wonder Woman run, because if he did what people think he did and they brought back the Clay origin, that's not going to work out story wise. But anyway, moving on. Then there's one other super character that Diana actually has interacted. You know, it's kind of funny. Diana has interacted more with Wonder Woman's family than Superman has. Wait, Diana has interacted
yeah.
more. I'm trying to figure this out. I'm tired. Diana has interacted more with Superman's family than Superman has with Diana's family. So Diana and Connor.
Now, this is a relationship that is just so, it's very much big sister, little brother, and like, if Connor isn't being accepted by Clark, he would definitely, you know, want to be Wonder Boy
Mm-hmm.
with Diana.
Wonder
Um,
Boy.
he would. Um, so the first panel is from I believe War of Gog,
Mm-hmm.
Wrath of Gog. And this is when Connor is asking Diana, you know, do you love him? And um, she says she does. But of course, the clickbaity thing is what Chuck Austin wanted to do was of course, have the romantic vibe, the love square in a sense, because he didn't like the marriage with Lois. So he thought that the better love interests were Diana and Lena. But it was in an interview, Chuck Austin said that Rucka came to him and was basically like, no, don't have Diana in, you know, as a romantic interest. And so within this issue, she says that she loves him, but then she goes off on like a tangent or whatever and says, you know, as a friend, like a man and a woman can't have a relationship that's, you know, that's platonic or whatever like that.
And then when you
And it's
realize the way she's on the bed, her bust facing him, he says, "Do you love him?" She pauses like that and kind of smiles, and then says, "Yeah," and then goes on that whole thing. It doesn't fall. That doesn't seem platonic to me. It's like in Wonder Woman 800 when they're hugging each other above the earth and looking at each other, and Clark says so much beauty, and then people's like, "Oh yeah, that's platonic." I'm like, on what planet is that platonic?
exactly.
And it's like
That is
the
what this
body
is.
language is not platonic.
Yes, that is a lot of pre-52 Superman and Wonder Woman, when writers didn't want to just go overly, you know, with the romantic angle. If they wanted to, it's always in the art.
Mm-hmm.
But whatever they say with the dialogue, it's like that doesn't match the art at all.
Mm-hmm.
So then you have another panel where I think this was the aftermath of Our World's um at War, I
Maybe.
think.
I think.
But it was Superman 221,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess Clark and Diana was having a disagreement, and it's the talk of everyone talking about it and the tension between them. So Connor just teases and like he says that you and Diana, you know, should get a room. And Clark, shoots back saying that it's a worm in the apple. So pretty much Connor is was used as like the voice of the fans, knowing that Clark and Diana have like this certain tension between them and they should be together, and just calling them out on it. Um, but I think that Connor really did have respect for Diana. There was also a story, I think it was Elseworlds, that Connor having like the punk rock look, but I think
Hmm.
he had a crush on Diana.
Oh boy.
So,
Did Bruce Timm write this?
no,
I had to
I
ask
mean,
that. I had to ask that, Brit.
yeah, I know. I mean, I think from what I remember, I just know of it, so I didn't read the story itself. But yeah, I think he just had like a little crush on him, like a teenage crush.
Which, to be clear, here's the thing: it's been long said in DC continuity that every man on the Justice League has had a crush on Diana at some point. She's
Exactly.
Diana.
Yeah, so it's basically like that, and it's cute. It's like he's well, first he's a clone of Clark, so of course part of him is going to, you know,
Yeah, that kind of works.
have.
Because we're in a universe where memories can be transferred by clones. So how about romantic attachment? That works too. Then we
And
also
then,
have. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
oh, I was gonna say, there was a robot chicken, like a gag of Connor being their like secret child.
Hmm.
Is
I watched that. That was funny. The link is there. I put it on here, but I don't want to get like copyright strike. Then we have Young Justice, which we've talked about before. How there was clear tension in Young Justice whenever she would like be near him, like this scene specifically. And then apparently they just undid all that because someone was a big fan of Lois.
again, it was when they first started Young Justice, um, and James Tucker was producer.
Oh, no wonder.
Uh, yeah, but I think that changed. That changed for the season 4.
Hmm.
But um, someone had asked because I guess there was little hints of Clark and Diana's relationship before this episode, and a little bit more. I think she did like a hand touch or something like that.
Yeah.
But they asked about their relationship, and it was he gave a very ambiguous type um answer. It wasn't a yes or no. Um, so when this particular scene came out, yeah, a lot of shippers, um, of course, celebrated this scene, and it's the fact that again, Connor is right there, and Diana, the whole scene of Diana waiting for them to help Clark out of the water, and him, you know, laying on her lap, and just to have that little moment. They see it. It basically um, was reminiscent to the Wrath of Gog, you know,
Hmm.
um, scene. And I don't know. It's just that type of idea of your little brother knowing that you have like this relationship with this woman that supposed to be your best friend, but it's obvious that you have like more than friend feelings, and he calls you out on it. That should be a gag for Connor.
That should be
and
a running gag. I do agree with you. That'd be hilarious.
and then with Connor too, he has so much potential as a character because as a clone of Lex and Clark, you are just like Damien being, with the Alguls and um, in Bruce. You have this identity crisis.
Hmm.
You are being pulled on both sides,
Kind of like being an
and
outsider.
exactly, and you don't know what path to follow. You try to make a new path on your own. Try to blend it all together, the good and the bad. And again, Diana understands that, and she can help both Kara and Connor. Um, and like I said, with Young Justice and how Clark, even treated Connor bad, but then, with introducing John out of nowhere, I mean, even John and Lois, everything done off screen because how did Clark get with Lois? Like,
Yeah,
you
they
know,
barely have ever mentioned her in season 1, besides like being like on a newscaster thing, and then it's like. But I will say there has to be there'd be this if I were writing it, there'd be this funny scene where Connor's dating Cassie, and then Superman goes, "I see you're dating Wonder Girl." And it's like, "Well, you're dating Wonder Woman. I figure I should follow in your footsteps."
ha, that is funny. That is
That
cute, actually.
that would be hilarious. Come on. And so then we have now you may be wondering, okay, we talked about how the family would react. How about the villains? And Superman and Wonder Woman showed this really well, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, you are mixing the sci-fi with the mythical. And especially with showing, well, Diana doesn't have any weakness that you can really exploit, but Clark,
Mhm.
the fact that his weakness is magic. And also he isn't trained properly in fighting. He's a brawler, but he needs to be properly trained because without his powers, he needs to know how to fight and survive. So we, yeah, really got that with Superman and Wonder Woman, with Diana fighting Zod and Feora, to show that, yeah, I will always love that scene of Diana burning the side of Feora's face.
Yes. It's just so badass when she like first she blocks the heat vision with the sword and then just burns Feor's face.
I mean, if this was adapted in animation,
No, I
like,
want this in live action with Gal Gadot and Henry Cavill. Can you imagine?
oh my God. Yeah, I mean, it would work. It really would. Um, and wasn't it said that Gal was she auditioned for the Feora
Yeah,
role?
originally she auditioned from I think she was like offered the role of Feora in Man of Steel, but she turned it down. Boy, did she upgrade!
Right. And that's very interesting. I mean, that really showed that some connection, you know. And
Well, at the very least, I like that she got to be less of a character that just shows up for one movie,
true. Yeah.
because we
But I
wouldn't have
mean,
had
it
Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. And I'm like, you know what? And now that I see it, I could see her playing Feora too. But it's like, first off, I like who they cast as Feora, so that's fine too. It's not like I lost anything. And then you
right.
get like she has good chemistry with Cavill from what we've seen barely. So it's nice to see that.
Yeah. But again, the every idea DC just throws in the trash. Like, they are very lazy. Thanks, Didio, for explaining, letting us
Yeah,
know that
that was
DC
the
is very
greatest
lazy.
moment in show history when I read that and said part of the reason why for the new 52 was getting rid of the marriage. I'm like, so I was right.
I mean, I think that's always been known. Like,
Hmm.
it, it's the fact that the marriage, it just sucked the life out of Superman and the creativity of and limited, you know, storylines. And we see it here that Connor, he was pushed out for John, and look at John. John is he's a he's a character that's just there.
Hmm.
And he doesn't really bring anything to the story. The only thing that his purpose was to close the door, which, why would you close doors on a character?
Which I got news for you. John's existence does not close doors. If DC wants to find a way to break up the marriage to Lois, they'll find a way.
Yeah, and because he has pretty much failed as an adult character and even as a
And as a
kid
kid.
character.
I was about to say that. Yeah.
Yeah, even as a kid character, it it wasn't just the lighting the charts on fire. And it's the fact that the only reason for him to be a kid is to have a um interaction with Damien. But Damien is his own character and
A
has
good
been
character.
for
I think he's a good character. It's just, I'm against this whole Batman has a kid, so Superman must have a kid. Or in Tom King's case, but Batman and Superman have kids. Wonder Woman must have a kid. I'm like, not necessarily. Although I wouldn't be opposed to Wonder Woman having a kid with Superman, but that's just me. But speaking of children,
exactly.
by the way, Britt, I wanted to tell you this real quick before we get to the Super Wonder Children. I want to stay on the show and get your reaction. So Chuck Dixon, inventor of Bane, Batman writer extraordinaire, he was asked about Wonder Bat. And do you know what he said
What did he say?
on his stream? And again, this is Chuck Dixon, one of the most legendary Batman writers of all time. He said, nah, I don't see, I'm not quoting him, obviously, and this was told to me by a viewer that watched his stuff. Chuck said that Wonder Bat doesn't really work, and if he really thought about it, Wonder Woman works best with Superman.
Wow.
And I'm
I
like,
mean,
I knew there was a reason why I love you, Chuck. By the way, come back on the channel.
honestly, all pretty much
Most
all
creatives I have
yeah,
asked, whenever it comes to like Wonder Bat versus Super Wonder, even like David Finch, he was like, nah, Superman, definitely. He thought about it for a moment, but then he said Superman. And I'm like, and he was pretty emphatic about it. And I'm like, I figured he would say that considering how closely he worked on Wonder Woman in the New 52. So it was like, I think I know we were going to align with this.
that, but it's also as a Batman like creator,
Yeah, it was kind of funny.
that
It's mostly the Batman creators that are like, no, she doesn't work with Batman. The guys that supposedly know Batman the most are like, no.
exactly. The Even the Batman creators that try to like Rucka, it's more
Or
so
Tim.
yeah, it's more so well in Tim's case it was he's a I would say Tim and Rucka are the same because they are
Mm-hmm.
Lois fans
Mm-hmm.
and they didn't want Tim. It has been said that Tim wanted to push that because they wanted basically no Superman and Wonder Woman shipping or no fans shipping them. So
Well, you kind of made the opposite. But the other thing is like, I did like, even Zack Snyder was like, it's fun to play with, but when you really think about it, it's not going to work for Wonder Bat. He didn't say Super Wonder, but I'll take this as a victory.
and even with the whole playing with it thing, it's like it's no point because Diana isn't the type that
Mm-hmm.
you do that with. Not
If I ever have Zach on the show, I'll ask him specifically about that and say, how about Wonder Woman with Superman? Would you be opposed to like doing that? Because let me ask you this, Britt. Tell me how appealing this is. If they did a Superman Wonder Woman movie with Cavill and Godot, directed by Zack Snyder,
adapting power couple.
adapting Power Couple, because you also
Yes.
have Zon Feora there, so it's actually not a bad trade. He's done that before.
I mean,
With Zack Snyder's visual style, his
visuals and the
cinematography,
action.
everything, because he would legit recreate panel to screen though that book, because he's done that with 300. He did that with Dark Knight Returns. He would 100% do that.
Yeah, and it would be like very bombastic.
Yes.
It would
Yeah.
be
See, here's the thing: Zack Snyder is a more talented Michael Bay in that sense.
yeah, I would say that those fight scenes will be amazing
Just imagine
for
the
sure.
Man of Steel fight scenes, but essentially doubled because now you have 4 characters instead of 2 fighting.
Yeah,
And one
that
of them
would
has a
be
sword. I just want to hear Henry Cavill talk to Apollo and go, you don't know that much about me, do you? I
I was just
just
about to
want
say
that. Is
that.
that too much to ask for, Britt?
Yeah, the Apollo versus Clark scene. I mean, I just don't understand why, whether live action or animated, why they like haven't thought to animate adapt that. because it's such a
I think I know
good
why,
scene.
Brit. I think I know why, Brit. I think DC is scared of the Superman fandom. I think they are legitimately scared of the Clovis fandom. I literally think that.
But I mean, this scene is showing like Clark one-upping a god.
Hmm.
Wouldn't they pretty much love that though?
They
You
should.
know, it's
Speaking of one upping gods, though, we also have the progeny of Superman Wonder Woman. By the way, here's the Brett Booth designed costume. I would love this to be a McFarlane action figure because I think this would be really cool.
right. Oh, one more thing about
Yeah,
the
go ahead.
villains.
Yeah, go ahead.
So with Cersei,
Oh, yeah.
okay, so a lot of times Cersei turns, men into beasts. And of course, Clark is being that he is weakness to magic, that she oftentimes turns him into beasts or there was one um black and gold
Hmm.
issue of Wonder Woman where she turned Clark into a hamster. And
That's great.
and
Super
when
hamster.
and when Diana went to wherever she was, her lair or whatever, she um she saw Odysseus.
Hmm.
And the story of Cersei and Odysseus is that um of course they are lovers, and um the whole mythology drama with that. But it was comparing, you know, Cersei's relationship with Clark and Diana in a subtle manner. It was saying that Diana was talking about, how can you like someone that's, stubborn or, this whichever way she was describing him. And then Cersei just says, like, you're one to talk. Like, the
Hmm.
one, the one that you're looking for, you're talking about who I'm with, but, you know, um, what about your man or whatever. So yeah, that little interaction of Cersei and even with Tomasi, Cersei's disdain for Diana works. And if
Did you
she,
just compliment Tomasi?
well, actually, it's been an
Wow.
ongoing thing, even with Perez. So no, I'm not giving
I love how
Tomasi.
quickly you
Yeah,
were like, actually, no, I'm actually
no,
complimenting Perez.
yeah, no. It's the only consistent thing that he gave though was the disdain that Cersei has. But he made it a little bit darker, but it worked. It gave that um a sense of honestly why Cersei should be Diana's, her main villain, the arch nemesis. And the thing is, what's now I am gonna give this one compliment, but that is the only thing, is that
Here we go.
Cersei being, adapted live action in DCU with Gunn,
Hmm.
because, well, of course we don't talk about 84, but Cheetah is not good for you know, a live action. Cheetah just doesn't work.
They could have made
Um,
that Cersei.
yeah, I believe Cersei, if you're gonna do a live action and to really show how powerful Diana is, the gods and Cersei, like, you should just straight up go um that route with Wonder Woman. Other, crazy villains like Cheetah, I would say Dr. Psycho can probably work too.
Hmm.
Um,
And
you know,
like this way, if they were continuing the new 52, they could have also used Dr. Poison
yeah,
for a little synergy with the DCEU.
yeah, something like that. That works. But Cheetah, I don't know. I really don't see that. Um, and especially the CGI of her, the big cat
There were
lady.
better ways that they could have expressed Cheetah, like try to make her more animalistic and less like cat lady. I think that would have been a little better.
Like they were going for Barbara Ann instead of Priscilla Rich. I
Hmm.
think Priscilla Rich would work so much better
Hmm.
if you want to adapt a cheetah. But yeah, I really just wanted to go back and talk about Cersei because yeah, Cersei um could really, if they gave a storyline, I would want uh Diana and Clark versus Cersei.
That would be really cool. And you could even have it where like she tries to bewitch Clark, but he's able to fight it off because Diana has been teaching him to like see the truth and everything.
Right. Oh, and forgot one more, Maxima.
Oh yeah,
Maxima
that would
is
be so good.
because Maxima is like the Bizarro Diana because they're both princesses, but the thing is what a lot of people talk about Diana when she's with Clark, how they um they just want super babies and all of that.
So you're talking about Maxima then. By the way,
Yeah, it's
here's the story. So Maxima challenges Diana to a duel for Clark, and then Clark's like, "As flattered as I am that you guys want to fight over me, can, maybe don't do this in the middle of a city."
well, I actually have a little story about that. Huh?
Ooh, is it one that you've already done, or is it an idea that you have?
Already done.
Oh, good. I can't wait to check that out. I need to check that out. I
Yeah.
I think I may know which one it was, so I may have to check that out. But anyway, that'll be a funny idea, particularly with Clark going, as flattered as I am that you both want to fight out over me. Dot dot dot. And Diana and Cersei both glare. Diana and Maxwell both glare
Maxima.
at Clark, and he goes, "Never mind."
Right. It would really show, the differences of Maxima and Diana. And again, how whatever they think that Clark and Diana's relationship is, it's actually Clark and Maxima. And the thing is, that is one of the things that Superman fans say is that if you want the Superman and Wonder Woman relationship, why not use Maxima? It's like they're two totally different
They are very
characters.
opposite people. Like
Yeah, and it's the fact
you
of
made a good point. She is the Bizarro Diana.
yeah, and it's the fact of to say that if you want Clark and Diana's relationship, just do, Clark and Maxima. It's like that shows how you are trying to again reduce Diana. And they say how Clark and Diana's relationship is surface level. It's like you're only looking at it surface level. Diana is a princess, yes, but she does not care. Maxima, she is the one that cares for her royal status. She is the one that wants super babies. She is the
So if
one that wants
anything,
to
Maxima with Batman, anyone? According to the Wonder Bat rules.
exactly.
So
Oh
so
my
far I
God.
have coined Zois and Maxibat. Yes, I've done it. I have
Oh my
done it.
God. Maximat. Oh wow.
Maxibat. That has to be a tweet after this. Jesus.
That
That is
honestly,
awesome.
that honestly sounds like a villain name.
Maxibat. Yeah, and plus it works because you know how Bruce puts bat in front of everything.
Yeah, but no, you know what? That actually sounds like a Pokemon.
Yes, it does. Maxibat, I choose you.
Oh my goodness. We
I
are
gotta, I
getting
gotta tell the guys that I came up with a new ship live on the air.
wow.
There you go.
Maximat.
So now I'm 2 for 2. I got Zois and Maxibat. There you go.
Yeah, that is honestly that's perfect. But now I'm just thinking of a Pokemon. So yeah, overall, with their villains, we've covered their families and now the villains. It totally works. You really just any type of um what naysayers, say about Clark and Diana's relationship, even though they only scratch the surface of a lot of these relationships, you can go back and just a tiny scene can debunk anything that a naysayer has to say. And it's also showing that at least at some time, someone had the great idea of setting something up. You just need a, you know, a competent writer to let these ideas actually be explored and flourish. And with DC wanting new fans, that is how you get new fans and investment. And honestly, New 52, with all its flaws, you could have done this. You really could have um, had these characters making new relationships and going back to the kids. And like you said, with Donna, you know, I really wanted to read something like that.
Well,
Whether
speaking of
a,
kids, you might as well just transition over to this topic right here.
yeah, even with whether she was a mentee or a time displaced daughter, this design is
So good.
very simple, but yeah, it's very good. And actually, her and John, um, Kingdom Come John, they have the same, like, it looks the same
I
in a
also,
sense.
by the way, like a small detail. I like how the hair kind of goes over under her eyes a little bit. It puts a little attitude with her.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is with Clark and Diana, you can blend their worlds together, but also their kids. And with people saying that they are predictable, no, the kids from Kingdom Come Jonathan, his design, I really did not pay attention to the lasso when until you pointed it out a few weeks ago.
Hmm.
And I'm like, oh my God, to see a boy, with the lasso of truth on his hip, and just the idea of someone writing that
He even
he
has the
uses the,
bracers too.
yeah, so if he isn't bulletproof like that, and you know say he does have a weakness or whatever, and he's blocking bullets, or that he's using the lasso, just that vision, it's like you have something that can be so cool and just give you know um potential readers or existing readers just something that could be eye-catching. Um, and then you have the baby from Act of God. The story was terrible, but it's the fact that it ended with Clark and Diana having a kid, and the kid like created a whole city with his blocks, whatever type of
Hmm.
psychic powers that he has. Is something so different than just being a carbon copy of Clark and or Diana. Like the kid doesn't have maybe he doesn't have laser heat vision, or something like that. With the blending of their DNA, it's creating something totally new. Then you have Laura and Jonathan from um the Millerverse, which they do have the basic powers, except for Jonathan, he's supposed to be like a baby Buddha and with his nuclear vision. But given that he's a 3-year-old that can, highly um
He's
intelligent.
intelligent. All right, I love the way he just hovers there. He's just chilling.
Yeah, it's like he's standing, but he's just like
He's just
hovering,
floating.
and then he likes to fly, upside down too.
Yeah,
So
he
yeah,
does that same thing but inverted. And I'm like, I love this kid.
yeah, it's just something that's so quirky about Clark and Diana's kids. You can do, just something totally new with them. And especially with, I mean, you have the Olympians, you have, if the Kents are alive, you have the Kents, you have the Amazons, and then you have all of pretty much Earth. So you have these four worlds that you are blending together with Clark and Diana's kids, and creating this total different thing. And going back with John, Rebirth John, and how Bendis said that he was biracial. I mean, he
That's
kind
not
of
what that means, brother.
exactly when I heard that, I was like, I I know that he was saying it in a literal term of race, like Clark is Kryptonian and the humans,
But you can't. But that
but
doesn't mean the same thing in the real world, brother.
exactly, that does not mean that. And the fact that he tried so hard to force that biracial like
Well, remember,
controversy or
this
whatever.
is the guy that you know what he did to Iceman when he was writing X-Men.
No.
So this is how Iceman came out as gay. Are you ready? All right. So what would happen in the X-Men? Bendis had Beast bring the younger versions of the X-Men into the modern day because Cyclops had like forgotten what it means to be an X-Men or something like that. Not important. So young Jean Grey reads young Bobby's mind and goes, "Oh, Bobby, you're gay." That's how they did it. And Bendis got roasted for that because I'm like, you're first off, it looks like she put the suggestion in him and he wasn't really gay. And also, you had her out him to other people.
Really? That is
That,
awful.
yeah, I know, right? That's how Iceman became a gay character. That's how they did it.
Wow, that is honestly that is worse than John's. No, it's practically the same level. Um, I don't know what
John's is a
even to
little
say.
better because at least no one outed him. He outed himself, if you will.
He outed himself, but at the same time, I believe that the issue where he, came out was that it seemed kind of weird. It may have been the art, but it was kind of like Jay put a spell on him or something.
That's what that it's kind of funny of the detractors that don't like John Kent. The the thing is the theory is this is gonna be funny that what's happening really is that John is being manipulated by Jay, and Jay's hair is actually coated with pink kryptonite because it's long been
Exactly.
theory that like pink kryptonite makes Kryptonians gay.
Right. That was when Jay first appeared, that was the theory, and it makes sense. I mean,
I mean,
it
if DC ever wanted to like undo it, that's the way they could do it. It's like, oh gosh, do they
I
really
just don't
want that
know.
backlash though?
I mean, I just don't know why you would give him pink hair when it is associated with the gay kryptonite thing. It just seems like very on the nose. Like,
Well, DC
why
is
do
not
that?
exactly known for doing things haphazardly, as we know.
Right. Um, yeah, so with John and like I said, with the biracial thing, it doesn't make sense. And then you turn around and say that he was stuck in a volcano for several years, but because of how he was raised, he came out like perfectly normal.
That's not the way that works. Imagine that it's here's a basically he should for years. Let's say okay, so he was like 13 when it was like 10 when he went in, and then how old was he when he got out of the volcano?
It was 7 years,
All right,
so
so he basically spent 7 years in Gitmo.
I think he was 10.
Yeah,
And then,
but my point is, he spent basically 7 years in Guantanamo Bay, essentially. Yet don't come out of that normal.
yeah, and then it's the fact that you were tortured by a supervillain that like looks exactly like your dad, which is
Mm-hmm.
just, yeah, it's that is very traumatizing. So to say that he came out perfectly normal, really, the character development and everything just, went out the window. Um, he's very much a Gary Stu, and even to say that he's more powerful than a pure Kryptonian, trying to go the Gohan route, that
Yeah,
doesn't work.
according to Taylor, and I was like, I'm gonna call BS on that because, okay, so he's half human, John. You know who else is half human is Connor, and Connor is weaker than Clark, so that doesn't work.
But again, it's a lot of things that for John, starting, from the very beginning of Rebirth, how they would bend the rules, you
Well,
know.
yeah. The Taylor even said that like Clark that John was a better hero than Clark because John was a pacifist. And in my thing, I'm like, if he's a pacifist, meaning he won't fight at all, then he shouldn't be a superhero. Because here's the thing with Clark and Diana, as a matter of fact, yes, they will seek out the most peaceful option first. But when all hope is lost, when all other situations have been extinguished, Clark is ready to throw down, and same with Diana. You can't be a pacifist and be a superhero.
Right. I his being a pacifist, I mean, that it doesn't work. It really doesn't because, you know, with I guess that's why Tom Taylor really didn't have John like going up against actual villains.
And again, that's why the book was, even if you don't, even if you, let me put it this way, ignoring the very political nature of that book, it was boring. And plus, here's the thing, it factors into why people don't like Diana because they're like, she's a warrior, but she's also supposed to be this agent of peace. But actually, fun fact, to quote George Washington, even he said the best way to prepare for peace is to be prepared for war because it's gonna happen. You just you have to deal with it. And Diana, yes, Diana 100% is on the side of peace, but she also understands that sometimes to get peace, you have to fight.
Yeah, I mean, even if Diana doesn't have the sword, she still
Mm-hmm.
has her fist,
Yeah.
so she will knock someone out if she has to, but she will use the lasso to, I mean, that is her first, you know, option is to use the lasso. And then if it gets any worse, she will punch you in the face. Then if
And we
it
saw that with Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, ignoring all the other problems with that game. But you saw it where she spent so much time trying to subdue her friends because she was like, no, they're still in there. And then it was a last resort when she was like, I can't stop Superman when she stabbed him with the kryptonite.
right, that is how, Diana works as a character. And the whole warrior thing, again, people need to stop looking at it in a surface level way of a warrior. You think a sword and she's just going to start beheading people and everything like that. Even with the new 52, she was not this happy-go-lucky sword swinging, killing everyone. And with John's Justice League book, she had the sword. But at the same time, she wasn't as bad. She was a young, you know, 18-year-old that her first adventure, um, she didn't even kill in John's Justice League. Even with the mission with Clark, their first thing was to go to a third world country and save women who were being it looked like they were being trafficked or something,
Mm-hmm.
but they went there to go help. Um, Still, she didn't use a sword or anything like that. Um, the only line they really use from John's Justice League is when she says, I don't have any villains because when I deal with them, I
deal
deal
with
with
them. Which
them.
even when now that I think about that line was taken out of context because look at what was going on in her book. She's fighting Greek gods.
Yeah, that was an excuse, really, because we never saw her villains. That was an excuse of why we
Mhm.
never saw them. But also, it's the fact that John's tried to create like tension or whatever between Clark and Diana and just the whole Trinity War storyline, and it didn't work. So using that and that whole conversation or whatever they had was dropped quickly. So it so yeah, taking that one panel and using it doesn't make sense when you know the context is like you said within her own book she wasn't dealing with her villains in the first place. In Superman and Wonder Woman still
She fought
I
Kryptonians and then Clark.
and then but she did with Hesha.
Mhm.
um Charles did bring in the blue snowman
Mhm.
and she just knocked her out. So,
Mhm.
you know,
I don't know what they were
she
going
didn't
with
kill her.
that. Yeah, exactly. She didn't. So now let me ask you this. So we talked about the SuperWonder Children. Now here's an interesting question because inevitably in this hypothetical world that we just created, man, you and me create a lot of worlds. But how
We
would the
do.
children relate to the gods themselves?
All right. So I think that it really depends on their power. Okay, well, I'll say the powers a second. Their personalities. Because with I see it as with Clark and Diana, they're trying to create something new together and trying to really exemplify the acceptance. So their child is a product or, a of that an embodiment, I would say,
Hmm.
of that acceptance. And within that part, you have the child that's just pretty much I would say they have the personality of Perez Diana.
Hmm.
Very happy-go-lucky, very, adventurous and open, just wanting to be friends with, you know, people
Hmm.
for better or worse, but just so friendly and just this little ball of power that does have the potential to probably be more powerful than a god and probably, does exemplify those powers. But it changes the perspective of the gods that these two people who are different from the worlds that they, are connected to and protect, but they've created this new life. And that new life is so unpredictable. And it just fascinates the gods that they don't really know what to expect from this certain child. And then you have where the child also just feels like, I want to know everything. I want to know, everything of my lineage. And if you, have the gods like Apollo or Strife, especially, try to, muddle the waters a little bit, that child, of course, will be very interested to know, okay, here's my uncle and my aunt.
Uh, I can imagine. Let's say like it's Donna as the kid in 252. She's in school and she's learning about Greek myth, and then under her breath she goes, "That's not how that story goes."
Right. It Stuff like that is what should be in the comics
Which, by
for
the way,
sure.
that was in the Snyderverse, because if you notice, when Lex Luthor at the library in Metropolis Gala is giving a speech about like the Prometheus story, and Diana kind of just goes like, when he's telling
Yeah,
the
she
story about
rolls her
Prometheus,
eyes.
I'm like, that is so good.
Yeah, because it's really just giving that, in a sense, a meta commentary type thing,
Mm-hmm.
and it really again just brings in the reality of the world, of the comic book world, and that fantastical type, you know, that feeling of it, putting all of that together. And I think that that is what the kids will bring. And then of course their grandfather is the king of the gods. And again, you don't know the kids' powers, but you know their personality. And like I said, I would, as um a toddler, like I have Austria, and her personality is very much Diana. And just that, you wanting everyone to be at peace and everyone to be like a family. So with the gods and how dysfunctional they will always be dysfunctional, but that also that kind of underlying hate and distant, I believe that their kid, you know, like I said, embodies that, to where everything comes all together. Now it's
Mm-hmm.
not going to be a utopia, because again, the gods and humans, you know, do have that underlying hate, but at the same time, it's something that really shows Clark and Diana's messages and their purpose of who they are as heroes, and how, you know, they're constantly working for a better tomorrow, or, you know, and just that bringing their worlds together with their kid can show that they have succeeded.
And by the way, that could be a book. Can you imagine you have the Superman and Wonder Woman book, but then you also have like their kids have their own book?
That is what, honestly, Casey John should have his own book, especially with his design, you know, again, having a Wonder Boy or Hyperman, if he goes by by that name, which apparently he will, but the fact that he has, the S shield, and it's so big too. I just love the way Dan Mora designed that to be such a big shield. And again, having the lasso and stars on his pants, just every detail of his costume really works and stands out. And it's better than Rebirth John, because John just had the Superman suit with like red shoulder pads and a belt with a red like crystal ball, half like it looked like half a crystal ball was in the middle or something like that. And now he has they're trying to give him the electric powers, that the electric blue powers that Superman once had.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they're trying to find something for John. And it's kind of like, if he's supposed to be his own character, you create something new. You don't like try to regurgitate what was given to characters, pre-existing characters. Like
Yeah,
with
because otherwise, it's like if you're gonna just have John be in the same situations as Clark when being Superman, why even have him take over as Superman?
Yeah. And it was the fact that, when they tried to force that of him um taking over, sales just really were an embarrassment. And it basically went back, and DC is back to pre-52 sales, which in like right when it was threatened, you know, that they needed to make some changes and have the reboot. So for you to go back to what made you have the reboot in the first place, but think that that is normal and that it's acceptable, it's not acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, John, if what some fans think is that him being bisexual, it kind of like gives him a shield that he can't be erased. But yet there's a lot of LGBT Q characters that DC neglects, and they really only
Midnighter
give
Apollo, baby. Midnighter and Apollo.
right or Batwoman,
Mm-hmm.
and they give them like certain stories, like for the anthology, the Pride anthology. That is when you see these characters being used, and that's pretty much the state that John is in because he is actually the House of Brainiac story that Williamson is doing. Bleeding Cool posted spoilers, and Jonathan was um like not mentioned at all. Every
Yay!
yeah, everyone else was mentioned. Like Kara and Connor are, I guess, the main um characters besides Clark within the story. And then he did say something about the super twins, which they're only being babysat. So it's kind of like, okay, so these kids are only being babysat. They have no other story and only mention is when they're being babysat. It's crazy. Um,
Yeah, honestly, to that point, because we were talking about this, like I think a year or so ago, and Jahid said that what's probably going to happen with John is that he's going to be shelved for like a really long time because, like him or not, there has been a ton of damage to the character since like ever. So it's gotten to the point where the character could be unsalvageable. Now, granted, you and I both know that the character should not have existed in the first place. But I'm saying he's here, and I doubt that they're gonna just completely like wipe him out. Although I wish the way they could have salvaged this is in Dark Crisis, in that moment when he's like fighting all the Superman villains and they're like punching him, and then Doomsday comes to punch him. It would have been cool if he died there and sacrificed himself, because then you would have had something. He did something there.
right, but I mean, John, he can't die even by Doomsday. That will just be overkill of the fact that he's copying Clark. So honestly, you can't really do anything with John in the sense of everything that's done, you will only compare him to Clark. And
Yeah.
you are redoing what Clark has done. I mean, he's dating a reporter. He's and apparently what uh Johnson said about being reporters and being at the Daily Planet, it's a family business. So so he is basically established as even a reporter. And it's kind of like, come on, like there's something that could be totally different. There's, thousands of occupations or whatever. If he needed, why does he have to be a reporter? Like that doesn't make any sense. I think with uh, even with whether you want to have the Kents, being farmers, or the L's, you know, the scientist route, or not so much the military, but something like, within that type of technology type um field, something like that. But to be a reporter is just, like I said, it's overkill. And I think that
Or at least just stick with the like new 52 idea with him being like an internet blogger.
Yeah. But with Clark and Diana's kids, like I said, they are very much unpredictable. With putting their worlds together of even with the Amazons, the it's already the fact that Diana is with, this powerful being that just turns their whole idea of men on his head. Um, but having a child, whether it is a male or a son or daughter, it's just the fact that you have this little ball of, energy. Like I said, always as a child have the personality of Diana. And that this child can, like I said, just bring these worlds together. And whether it's their powers or as they grow up and they choose a field if they have to, work, I think that the child would be an artist
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's
because,
cool.
Diana, she loves sculpting, or even with sports, you know, um, go back to the roots of the Olympics, something like that, the gymnastics or something. Um,
Wasn't there a thing in like John Burns' Man of Steel where Clark was like a football star?
yeah. So, you have athletics, um, you have being an artist, whether it's sculpting or painting, um, a musician, get into music. You have the science field of, astrology or chemicals, something like that, or technology, building something.
Mm-hmm.
You have all of this background of Clark and Diana's you know, um individual uh backgrounds, like I said. You can pick and choose these different ways to make these characters stand out, and especially their kids. And if they don't have the kids together and they have to have like the traditional love interest, have the kid be different. You don't want a carbon copy of Clark. You don't want a carbon copy of Diana. Trinity isn't.
That's the thing about like Laura because she was different from Clark and Diana.
The thing with Laura is that even if she does have the powers of Supergirl, or, Kryptonian powers only, it's still the fact that her perspective is different because she grew up isolated, and the fact in the middle of having to be hidden from the outside world government, or else she was going to be taken and, tortured. So her feelings makes her different, and her perspective. Um, and then with Jonathan, Diana was, it seemed like she was more open, and he was able to grow up with being in man's world in Metropolis with Clark. So he has a different perspective of that too. So yeah, that whole dynamic can be explored, even with siblings. Um, but going back to Trinity, I mean, Trinity is um adopted, presumably. So, but what Tom King is showing though is that right now she isn't showing the relationship with Diana at all. It's just him wanting her to be babysat by John and Damien. And what's weird is the fact that Tom King is having these stories for the timeline of Trinity. So if she's 5 years old or she's 13, he said, or she's 20, within this 20-year span of her, of, him trying to have her introduced, you are basically messing up the timeline for different characters, just like John did. So you have her at 5 years old, but John is like 20 now, I think. And I think Damien is like 15 now, but he's a freshman in high school, and Jonathan is a college kid in a way. So yeah, trying to have the biological kids of these characters, if you aren't going to, first of all, it can't be contrived. And second of all, if you're going to try to have these kids, they have to be different. But at the same time, just like they have to have believable relationships. And that's the thing with Trinity is that trying to implement her in being Wonder Woman's daughter or Diana Prince, they don't have a connection. So it's like, what's the point of her? Jonathan too, it's like he doesn't have a place. Connor and Kara are basically being, forced back into being I guess the prominent supers as supporting characters. So yeah, he's redundant. Damien is the only one with a solid place, and especially with now he's being introduced into DCU.
Hmm.
And Gunn also, I guess it was on Threads that he reposted a um, Bruce and Talia thread.
Oh
Show,
yeah, about how they belong together and stuff, and I'm like, that's interesting. I mean, we've never seen that in a movie done well. I almost said we never did this in the movie, but then I remembered in the Nolan verse they butchered Talia, so I'm like, okay,
right.
they could do that if they do it right. They could have some fun with that.
Yeah, so I definitely think that they will end up we will see Bruce and Talia together, and hopefully it's not the Morrison retcon of, you know, of ruining Talia's.
Probably will be. Here's why. The source material that Gunn specifically designated as the inspiration for that movie is the Son of Batman arc.
Ugh. I mean,
I
you
mean,
can do
let me this way. They could like take elements from that, but change it so it was more a willing participation and not like she drugged him.
you can mix Son of Batman and Son of the Demon, the
Hmm.
where Damien was originally introduced. You can do that, you know, and it's the fact that he did repost that. It kind Well, you can repost anything, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you actually take heed to it. But as I guess socially aware as people are, you just don't want to, you know, um, there's a lot of controversy within the Batman fandom again with Damien because of how he is written, that if he's with Talia, that he becomes like this monster, this this irredeemable brat, assassin, and just her as a character is bad. But Bruce is supposed to be like this number one dad type, you know, and the best parent. And it's also the fact of feeling like um, Damien, his skin color, I guess when, colorists, they kind of whitewashed him a little bit or a lot
And
sometimes.
he was kind of also whitewashed in the DCAMU.
Yeah. So it's kind of like that representation now you want more of, and to show again that he is having difficulties. So yeah, to villainize the the parent that represents the more diverse, way or
Mhm.
culture, that isn't a good look.
No, it's
So
not.
yeah, so I would say that with Talia, please just don't mess up her character and really show that they do have a loving, or even if they aren't together, which that they're also explained is that it's difficult for them to be together, but they still love each other. So if you
Yep.
can do that, then Talia is saved, and that can go away of basically saying that she's just this bad character.
Yeah. Plus, here's the thing: the Arkham games, particular Arkham City, really dealt with that. That they still love each other, but ultimately, I still have more I need more information before I can determine if the Gunverse is going to be a success or not, because I've been burned many times with the DCAU. But I think that's a good place to leave this episode. We had a wonderful time talking with the SuperWonder family. So, Britt, do you have any stories that you would like to tease us with?
Well, I've finished Special Bonds, and
It's a good one.
I'm very happy about that. To finally finish after what, a year is, you know, um, so that will be posted soon. And I got your approval and my
Mhm.
points.
Mhm. Oh, trust me, there's still time for me to further consolidate my lead.
Right, right. I know. Which is probably in the next like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Um, and then I have getting back to the Athens story now. That is, the focus, and of course Shelter, and just getting back to these stories that I've neglected for almost a year, over a year. And also, again, thank you for the support and the inspiration to finish these stories.
Don't worry, I'm keeping her accountable.
And also, the Instagram is going up. We got 60.8 thousand followers. So yeah, it's going up. And I think within a year, within the end of the year, we will have 70,000. If
Good
it,
God.
continue, if it continues on with the algorithm, Instagram
Our
just
army
it,
grows, Britt.
yeah, it is very interesting to see the growth of the page. And so I want to thank everyone that has supported that, and just remember to subscribe.
And on that, I just want to. I have my own little subscriber thing because we Comics League is currently at 956 subscribers, and part of that is the show because a lot of the growth comes from this show that we do like every week. So I very much appreciate everyone showing up, watching the videos, liking the videos, sharing the videos. It's very humbling to see that this show has resonated with so many people. So thank you, and subscribe because we're on the road to 1K. I got lots of great stuff in the works. Stay heroic, everyone, and remember, Lois Lane is Lois Lane and belongs to General Zod. Zois for life.